And the world champions are here with us right now.
Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion.
And the final seconds set to tick off. San Antonio is back on top once again.
It might be hard to believe today, but the San Antonio Spurs were not slated to be just barely behind the Oklahoma City Thunder in the standings when we were at the beginning of the season.
Got to play in. I mean, I got him in the play-in.
Okay.
It was a unit who for sure had talent. They had exciting pieces in place, the biggest of which, Victor Wembanyama. And them being able to win the 2026 NBA championship with the way he is right now is precisely why it would be so important and impressive. The highlights don't show it, but he is not a perfect player. While believed to have GOAT potential, he's young and still has many weaknesses to be exploited. At times, he settles into shooting threes heavily, which he's not great at yet. Teams routinely use bigger wings to guard him, knowing that A, he is not strong enough at the moment to just back everyone down, and B, they can bring help or just have their rim protector roaming. So in year 3, while he is already a great player, he's not yet as unstoppable as he's going to be. So if they were to win, they'd be doing so while he and a good group of his teammates have not actually hit their prime. And this would be scary for the rest of the league. While Stephon Castle is an amazing defender and a great slasher, his shot is due to get a lot better, as right now you can still play off of him a bit. Dylan Harper, also a slasher who has much to add to his game. All this being said, Wemby does not have to post Wilt Chamberlain stat lines to affect the game like a legend. He's often able to be in drop coverage without it actually feeling like drop, being that he's always one step away from being able to contest whoever he needs. Teams that lack enough shooting have a hell of a time when the offense locks up, as it typically does in the playoffs. So even if he doesn't just record 6 blocks, he has changed far more than 6 shots. And back to the offensive side, the Spurs winning while he does not yet have a dedicated partner to play a 2-man game with would also be scary. You'd flat out assume this is De'Aaron Fox, yet since the calendar hit 2026, he is shooting dreadfully from the arc. So especially if it's a lineup with other questionable shooters, it's not as if you can just spam PNR. But when Devin Vassell is going, he's really going. As you saw in the Detroit Pistons game, as Vic was struggling to find his touch on offense, Devin kept them well ahead for most of it, and they quite easily closed out a team they may play in the NBA Finals, although it's starting to feel a bit of a long shot. Long story short, as I alluded to at the beginning, most of us did not have them this high in the standings, and a lot of the reasons I just discussed were part of that, and so far it's not stopping them from looking like contenders. At a point in this year, Shai Gilgeous flat out called them the better team. Everyone they would have to be on the way to win a title or to flat out win it, they have played well. So you win the title before most of your best players can really shoot. You win the title before Wembanyama unlocks the full potential of his game. And you do it just a few years after drafting him. So as this franchise was blessed to be one of the few ever to keep a core together so long and become a dynasty, just 6 years after having to do one of their first rebuilds in decades, they would be back on top. And winning it this soon would give the feel that, like the core before them, they could go on to win multiple championships over the next decade. Quiet as kept, this would also go a long way in that face of the league conversation that keeps popping up for the new generation. As they had been for so long, these San Antonio Spurs are back in the mix, looking to continue their long-standing tradition of greatness.
It's over! The Denver Nuggets can call themselves NBA champions!
It's now been 3 short years since the Denver Nuggets raised their first banner in franchise history, which may have been a bittersweet experience considering without the ACL injury to Jamal Murray, they may have been contending for the 2 before that. Yet, in the time since the title, things got kind of murky. Questionable trades, bleeding role players due to the CBA, all culminating in the owner publicly stating he didn't want it to have to get to a point where Jokic trade discussions became a thing. This only shortly after having fired head coach Mike Malone, which is now a forgotten subplot, due to A, how close they got to upsetting the Oklahoma City Thunder, eventual champions by the way, and B, the makeover of the front office, which has now led to their best team since the championship. Though, at the time of this commentary, it may be difficult to see. With most unfortunate timing, this team has dealt with injury after injury. All the while, Jamal Murray is having the best season of his career. This coming nearly 6 years after he broke out in the bubble, and 5 after the knee injury, which had seemed to nerf him a decent bit. On top of this stunning season, at a time where he was beginning to fall under scrutiny for his contract, Jokic leads the league in assists, rebounds, defensive rebounds, and averages nearly 30 a game while shooting 40% from 3 and 57% from the field. An electric duo that nonetheless will not win this NBA championship without being healthy. That goes to say for most teams, but especially for the unit who specifically needs their wing bodies to protect Jokic on defense. So if they did win the 2026 title, it would only mean that they did get healthy, and built on what they nearly accomplished last year where they rubbed shoulder to shoulder with one of history's best upsets. It was proof that while the roster had suffered a decline, the championship experience remained. The superstardom of Jokic remained overwhelming, and as the injuries of this regular season may see them enter the playoffs as a 5th or 6th seed, make no mistake about it, the Denver Nuggets are well within contention for another title. Doing so would accomplish a couple of things. With Murray and Jokic apparently at their peaks, they'd lead Denver to being the first franchise of the 2020s who's already won a title to add another. Not only have we had no repeat champions, we haven't had a franchise win more than one here. They do so at a crucial time, as don't look now, but Jokic is 31 years of age. And while he remains as good as ever, you never know how long prime superstardom will last. It would also possibly set them up to win a third this decade, as the silver lining of all the injuries is the spotlight it shined on some of the other talent they had, such as Peyton Watson. They'll have to get creative to pay him over summer, though I'm sure they will. And when and if they did, I see no reason why the unit would not remain great in 2027. Back to the ticking clock though. The Joker has made it clear he doesn't plan to play forever, and maybe not even so much longer. With the extension talks coming up for the 2028 season, there really is no way to tell what the plans are headed to the end of this and through the next decade. Jokic and Murray would also become the first duo to win multiple titles since the Warriors duos, however you'd like to do that with Steph and Clay or Steph and KD. It's become exceedingly hard to keep these teams together. All in all, a first-time champion who initially had their title disrespected, well, there'd be no way to disrespect this one. It would almost surely involve running through a defending champion, and a squad with another up-and-coming all-time great big. For a franchise who's experienced almost nothing other than perpetual mediocrity since inception, 2 titles in 4 seasons would absolutely raise some eyebrows. Oh, and lastly, how about the potential career transformation of Aaron Gordon? From simply existing in Orlando and doing some nice dunks, to a key piece of multiple NBA championships, while completely reinventing himself as a player. 5th seed, 6th seed, whatever. The opportunity remains realistic.
The Thunder have taken the NBA by storm. The NBA champion resides in Oklahoma City.
And so what do we say of the actual champions? They proved they were worthy last postseason when, as Shea said earlier this year, they simply didn't play as well as he thought they could have. Yet they still got themselves out of multiple adverse moments, culminating in a Game 7 win people have largely questioned over the injury to Tyrese Halliburton. Regardless, history is written by the victors, and it doesn't seem anybody doesn't actually take their last title seriously. They entered this campaign with whispers they may crack the 73 win mark. And while this didn't happen, it's impossible to say it hasn't been impressive they've maintained the first seed basically the entire year, all while having players swap in and out. Important ones too. Shea himself has missed time. It feels as if J-Dub has hardly impacted the team at all. This is precisely where their greatness shows the most. Unlike 99% of the league, they continue to have bodies to just swap. Lou Dort doesn't shoot well from 3 most of the season, and so Isaiah Joe gets some burn. They start the season missing Jalen Williams, and AJ Mitchell helps carry some of the scoring load with Shea. Hardenstein deals with some injuries. The other J. Will comes in and affects things as a small ball 5. And to cap it all off, they add a talent who was just previously a Rookie of the Year contender for damn near free.
I'm quite confident we were selling high. Yeah.
So while AJ Mitchell is out, after showing what he could have added last year, McCain shows what he could add this year, especially for a unit who has mostly seemed middle of the pack from the arc. So as where last postseason teams tried zoning them, trying to force someone other than Shea to produce, assuming they enter these playoffs healthy, it'll feel like they've added 2 other ball handling creators, 2 other guys who can knock down shots. all on top of everything they already had. The Oklahoma City Thunder would become the first back-to-back champion since the Golden State Warriors. They do so at a time where all the talent is still incredibly young, and just like they can swap players in and out this season, they can also do so for the foreseeable future. With their draft capital, extremely deep roster of talent, it's possible finances may cause them to lose one guy, as Sam Presti seamlessly fills the void another way. Though where repeating would be impressive enough, especially with the accumulated championship experience, a three-peat wouldn't be out of the question, and that would be the first of its kind since the beginning of the millennia. While the game's played threshold is putting Shea's chances at a repeat MVP at jeopardy, if he were able to finish both jobs, he'd become the first player since LeBron James to repeat as both MVP and NBA champion in consecutive years. Well over a decade has passed since the feat was last accomplished, and at just 27 years of age, at this point he'd be on his way to building an all-time great trajectory. As of today, they still remain my favorite, and they've got a great shot at becoming the face of the 2020s.
It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. The Celtics are NBA champions.
Not even yet a year removed from the face of their franchise tearing their Achilles in the postseason. How did we get here to it being possible for us to even have this discussion? One cliche in the NBA that actually translates is championship DNA, and to this point, Boston has proven they still got it. With no star wing and a questionable supporting cast as compared to the one that went to the finals and won the title, it wasn't fully known what type of year Jaylen Brown would produce. He fought through years of criticism to get to that finals MVP, and we've rarely ever seen him without Tatum by his side. Fast forward and he is in MVP conversations. The defensive identity of the team has not only remained elite, but Mazzulla has found ways to keep lineups around his star that make sense. The bigs of the team, who seemed like a last-ditch effort, actually held their own. And then the front office went and got them another one, increasing their lineup versatility and lowering their financial burden in the process. As we stand today, it's a bit of an uphill battle for them to get out of the conference. That's before we know exactly what'll happen with Jason Tatum. By the time of this post, he may have made it back. And even if he didn't, his return seems imminent. In a year where people aren't much believing in the first seed, and the conference remains wide open with no juggernaut, there's no way to look at the team who's been there multiple times and still has remnants of that core and say that they can't make it again. Of course, winning it is a different conversation, and that's why it would be such an impressive feat. Getting out of the East, very plausible. Beating one of the Western contenders 4 times, healthy? Objectively, it still feels like a long shot. And if they did, it would truly be one for the history books. You'd be looking at a unit who again lost their star to the most brutal injury a star can have. An offseason where ideas were floated to trade role players and the other star of the team. Then that team remaining together and excelling throughout the entirety of the regular season, fighting out of a tough conference, and winning the title. It's actually unheard of. You can't point to a single situation in NBA history like it. Like the 2 franchises before them, all these same benefits would apply. It marked Boston's 3rd finals appearance of the decade, and 2nd win after it's now been long forgotten, but there was always non-stop talk about how this team hadn't won in so many years. Their titles were from the Stone Ages. And well, considering they haven't had 2 upcoming prospects simply pass away anytime recently, their performance as a franchise as a whole is beginning to look like it pretty much always has throughout their history. JB and JT would instantly become recognized as one of the most successful duos of all time. Think about everything they've done since entering the league. A very near finals run in 2018 when nobody thought it possible after the injuries to their vets. It would have marked their 6th conference finals appearance together, and it'd give them claim to one more title than the Big 3 Celtics. I'll never forget Doc Rivers in his time with the organization saying to be recognized as one of the great Celtics teams, you've got to win 2. So by his rule, they will have entered rare air. All while being locked up for the foreseeable future, by the way. During their 2024 run, their finance talk was all the rage. How were they going to keep it together? Would this duo even stay together? Under the new CBA, would they keep a competitive team around them?
And the process of getting under the second apron and out of this financial situation that they've been in.
And not only are they in great position to do so, these two are locked up until the end of the decade. Both stars just now about to enter their 30s. Quietly, I believe this would be a huge accomplishment for Joe Mazzulla. He took over the reins after the Ime Udoka debacle, and looking back, it really does feel as if the 24 title was fully expected. This one is the complete opposite, and it's impossible to say he hasn't played a huge hand. This roster would have to fight through multiple roadblocks to actually win the championship, i.e., we have kind of forgotten we don't even know what Tatum will look like off of an Achilles injury, but this would instantly make it one of the greatest comebacks of all time, while also jumping them 2 banners ahead of their rivals on the West Coast.
Hats off to the New York Knickerbocker defense. And now 4 seconds. 3, 2, 1. We have a new NBA champion.
I don't think there's any team in the league under more pressure to at least make the NBA Finals than the New York Knicks currently are. And it's not all rooted in the last season's events. Sure, they were only games away and ran into a Pacers team playing at a historic pace. And with their disappearance from the standings and the Celtics having lost Tatum, it was expected they would be one of the biggest beneficiaries.
That's kind of what I'm looking at in the East. So I'm going to say Eastern Conference Finals. They match up with Cleveland.
I'm actually going NBA Finals. I think this is the year that the Knicks get it done.
But there also is a clock silently ticking for this unit. Looking just a little down the road, Karl Anthony Towns extension talks are coming up, and even further down, you look at Jalen Brunson, who did take a pay cut to allow all this to happen, and has expressed how he hopes he is paid back. Therein lies the pressure. If this specific iteration of New York did not make the finals, what more could be done to the roster, and how would you do it? It would come with choices which are being pressured by time. And so if you wanted to make a meaningful jump before you really have to deal with Karl Towns or even Brunson, you go from marginal trades like the Yabusele one to talking about actual core pieces here.
It certainly has to start with Karl Anthony Towns. Him and Giannis' contract actually work identically, same amount here.
Okay.
And there wouldn't be many courses of action left, as not making it would pretty much imply this unit has hit its ceiling. So what of the prospects of actually winning it? Well, watching, you can say they are 100% in a better position to do so than they were a couple of months ago, with both periods of time kind of showing it is an uphill battle, as is for most East teams, but it would really alleviate some pressure on the franchise that has more to do with than just appeasing critics. One of the reasons they will automatically struggle to get this done is the work they have to do to keep Karl Towns and Jalen Brunson away from certain matchups defensively. Being 2 of the unit's best players, they are absolutely necessary for New York to be at its best. Yet these are also the guys opposing offenses constantly attack. Realistically, though he's good, you probably should not be able to win a championship with Karl Anthony Towns playing center. He fouls a lot. He's pretty much got to play drop coverage in PNR to be tenable, and due to this fact, talented and contending teams do not struggle to find looks against them. But for the time being, they've covered this as much as possible. Mitchell Robinson has been relatively healthy, the move to go out and snag Jose Alvarado was masterful, and in the present day, they are much less reliant on Brunson ball to be successful. The pay cut from Brunson, the trade from Mikal Bridges, it will all have been worth it. It would catapult them to their first championship in what feels like generations. And you do so at a time while the conference is still for the taking. In 2027, it's very easy to imagine the Pacers being right back at the top of things, along with the Boston Celtics, who will then have both Tatum and Brown back with the finances to make a roster around them make sense. This year, you're dealing with the Celtics team who is playing bigs they probably wouldn't have chosen if they felt they were going to be contending. And the first seed is a unit with some glaring weaknesses. Jalen Brunson would join a very short list of short guards to lead their teams to titles, while Towns would end up with a career I feel would be way more respected. The NBA is all about matchups, and so far, nobody really matches up that well with the Thunder. It's rare. But as for the others, New York has played them well. They haven't played Denver or OKC healthy, yet they have figured out the Spurs problem. Especially based on last year, this feels like a season where absolutely anything could happen. New York ought to capitalize while it still feels this way, and they aren't facing a million different decisions about the near future.
Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
With the way this season was playing out up to the trade deadline, I was not expecting to have Cleveland as a part of this video. Yet with their trade deadline additions, it very much feels like the 2019 year where there were 4 squads who you could see getting out of the conference. Realizing their bench had taken a hit and they too will be facing a contract question with their star in just a couple of short years, when James Harden became available, they struck.
Malik, it makes my job so much easier.
Does it?
I mean, you know, the elite IQ, the elite passing skills, and really it's just a He's one of the best decision makers of all time.
It marked the first time in Donovan Mitchell's career that he shared the backcourt with another player of this caliber. Cleveland was not contending. Like New York, they were expected to benefit from everything else in the conference, and they fell flat. If Mitchell didn't score 30, they were a 500 team. How about adding another veteran ball handler, a creator, a scorer, somebody who could change life a bit for the bigs, and then going on to get a backup point guard you could actually use while adding another wing option. With the room that was available to them, they did everything they could to transform this into a serious team, and it's likely the last big move they'll be able to make of this iteration of Donovan Mitchell's Cavs. So while I would consider getting out of the East an accomplishment, winning the championship would make it one of the few deadline deals ever to change a season in this way. Mitch would add some real hardware to what's just been a magnificent career up to now, while James Harden would finally get his crown jewel. Year 17, tons of mileage, tons of misfortune, and it will have finally all have paid off in a way it doesn't usually for legends in his position. Here in 2026, he's got yet another chance to rewrite history on some of the things that have happened when he's had these opportunities. And Cleveland, once again, would get a chance to be successful without LeBron in a time where there's starting to be whispers about him coming back yet again. Financially, if LeBron wants to be paid anything, it doesn't make any kind of sense for him to come to this roster over summer, and for some reason it still feels as if it's on the table. Outside of all of this, Cleveland will have stuck with what's quietly been an excruciating process. Injuries, lack of real roster moves. If you turn back the clock, it'll appear they did a pretty good job between trades, drafting, and signings, organically bringing the chip to a small market in a way you don't often see. Like New York, it also alleviates pressure. Regardless of anything, a Mitchell decision still looms, and for the new trade piece, that's another decision looming. It all gets much less stressful if you've got hardware to rest on. And being that their roster is still so relatively fresh, I'm not sure we'll have a great read on their abilities headed into the playoffs. How well will they know their rotations where they're clearly trying to keep space on the floor and only have one big when Mitchell and Harden are trying to operate? If they ran into an OKC, what would the defensive matchups look like? They too have not seen the Nuggets healthy. To wrap this up, I will point out the last time a team made a big move in a wide open Eastern Conference, it paid off.
The Detroit Pistons have just shot to win the NBA title.
How crazy is it every time Detroit seems to be contending, it's with a group who's uniquely built as compared to the contenders of their time. The Bad Boys, an 04 squad who looked like the polar opposite of their opponents, and now a team who's only a couple of years removed from tanking. I'll start by saying I do not believe the Pistons can win this NBA championship. But as they've had an amazing season, they've got an amazing record, and they do have good qualities about them, leaving them off would be completely disrespectful. But yes, one of the reasons you saw Cleveland go make the moves they did, the conference feels that open. Its leader really has one creator on the roster and not a lot of shooting. There's no secondary star, nothing seemingly established that can carry them through some of the tougher rounds of the playoffs. But they are great defensively, they are deep, they're versatile. There is a world where they could get out of the Eastern Conference. It's just, in the last 2 weeks, that world has seemed to become more and more unlikely. Looking somewhat outclassed against a contender in the San Antonio Spurs, being beaten by a team they will have to go through in the East in Cleveland without one of its main pieces, and being challenged without both of them. When you watch them, you get the feeling they are a good young team who's built on what they did in last year's postseason, but they so clearly still have a ways to go. That being said, somehow winning the championship right now, before Cade fully develops his three-point shot, before Duren maximizes his skill set, before they've made any real trades, this would be insane for a team who has essentially spent decades at the bottom. Cade would actually be one of the few ever to have won a title in this manner. The roster in a contending environment doesn't fit him yet. He doesn't have a ton of shooters to kick out to. He doesn't have another trusted secondary ball handling star. He himself is still very young. You almost can't find an example of a team who's won a championship in this manner, and if you can, it's been a very, very long time. Like Cleveland, I feel the accomplishment would be getting out of the East. Doing so now sets them up for the next few years to be able to actually accomplish the goal. But either way, the fact that they found themselves into this video is incredible. There are franchises who have been as mediocre as them over the last 10-15 years who still look no closer to being at this point. So it's going in the right direction, and they truly would be right in line with the grit and toughness of their last championship teams.